Hello, everyone. Welcome. Wow, I see the participants coming in quickly. So we're just about a minute away from 6, so I'm going to wait until exactly 6 to start. It's so great to see all these participants coming in. I'm looking forward to presenting to you tonight on test optional and what that really means in our world of COVID-19 right now and how things are changing. So I'm just going to give it another few minutes before I start. As I start the presentation, I'm going to go ahead and, for those of you who don't know how to use Zoom or have not used a webinar platform before through Zoom, just understanding how the Q&A works. So normally I do this with either an admissions rep or another IEC or college counselor, and I'm not doing that this time. So I won't be able to moderate the questions as they're coming in. Usually one person moderates while I speak or vice versa. So there is a Q&A tab that you can click on. And so as we're going through the presentation, and if there are any questions that come up, go ahead and put your questions there. Don't put them into the chat area because I won't be able to moderate from there. And then also, you should be viewing the presentation, and I should be in a little box somewhere on your screen. You can move that around or minimize that if that's something that you don't want to see. So you have the ability to do those things. So first thing, I'm actually going to open up the Q&A. And I just would like to see who's here tonight. If you are a parent or a student, and if you are a senior, junior, sophomore, or freshman, if you can just put that into the Q&A and just tell me who you are, so I can guide my presentation a little bit more towards my audience. So I see I have a student who's a sophomore, a parent and parents of a junior, junior in high school, junior in high school, junior, lots of juniors. Mom and son who are juniors, welcome. My juniors are the ones that are the most filled with the most anxiety right now. So hopefully after this presentation, you won't feel that way. That is my, my goal. So I got a couple sophomores in here. I got more juniors, parents with juniors, junior with a mom. This is great. All right. Oh, that is junior. I thought I had a senior in there. All right, this is wonderful. Wonderful, great. So I'm gonna go ahead and get started. And let me just tell you a little bit about myself. My name is Negla Orlando. I'm an independent educational consultant, and I'm located here in Templeton, not Templeton High School, in Templeton, California. I work with Templeton High School in Paso and Atascadero and Mission Prep students from all of those schools. I also work with students from all across the country and in the state. My husband and I relocated here about 2 years ago, and I am a retired high school AP biology teacher. And so I was in the school system for many years before I decided to switch over and go into independent educational consulting or college counseling. I love what I do, and I've always been in the education field, and so that's just a little bit about me. And I work with lots of students, like I said, in the area and in California and across the country. I have students actually in North Carolina and New Jersey and other states. All right, so I'm going to actually start my presentation off with a poll, with a question. And those of you who attended my webinar that I did a couple of weeks ago, this is the same question. So hopefully I get lots of right answers if you were in that webinar. If you're not, then this is the first time that you will be seeing this. But I'm going to go ahead. It has to do with application review, okay? And the question is, what factor is given the most weight in college applications? And so I'm going to go ahead and launch the poll, and you go ahead and answer on your end. And once I see that I have close to about 90 to 100%, hopefully 100% of answers, then I'm going to go ahead and I will share those results with you. Wonderful. Answers coming in very quickly, but I'm only at 65%. So I'll give it maybe about 10, 15 more seconds to try to get everybody to answer. Still only at about 75% of attendees answering. If we can get a few more in there, it'll give us a better idea. Good, good. All right, 80, we're at 80%. That's wonderful. Okay. All right, I'm going to go ahead and end the poll, and I'm going to share the results with you. So 42% of you say that it is course rigor and curriculum, and my second or runner-up is GPA and test scores and essays being in last place. So you are correct. Most people, so I don't know if this is because you attended the webinar that I gave a couple weeks ago or not. Most people think that test scores are the most important, and that is not true, and nor has it ever been true. So there are, this is how decisions are made. There are two factors. There are hard factors, which are your course rigor, GPA, and test scores. So the course rigor in your curriculum is basically the classes that you're taking and the rigor, the difficulty of those courses based on what is being offered from your school. And then your GPA, cumulative for the courses that, and I don't want to say A through G requirements because that is not the case across the board for all schools that are private or out of state, but just your core curriculum, which are your 4 core classes, which I'll go over later, and then test scores. And then you have your soft factors, and those are your essay, your personal statements, your, you know, on your Common App, or your personal insight questions on your UC application, supplemental questions that are on parts of other applications in your Common App. Your letters of recommendation, those come from your teachers or or counselor, depending on what the schools require. And then your resume, and I don't mean your academic resume, I mean your extracurricular resume. And then whether or not an interview is available to you, whether that be from an admission rep or possibly an alumni, and then demonstrated interest. So I'm going to go over these a little bit so that you can, so we can understand them a little bit. So the hard factors are basically objectively measurable aspects of the application that the students have some control over. And you know, basically the courses that are offered at your school profile, you don't have control over what courses are being offered or available to you. The grading scales, and I'm going to talk about grading and how that's changed with regards to what schools are doing right now. And so that differs from school to school, which then indirectly affects your GPA. So some schools, in order for you to have a 4.0 is just an A. Other schools, in order for you to have a 4.0, it needs to be an A+. So an A- would affect your GPA by going down to a 3.7 or a 3.8 or something like that. And then test scores. And I'm talking about ACT, SAT. And those impact students differently depending on whether or not you prepped for the test, you know, what was your test day like? Everybody has a bad day and a good day. And then whether or not you have test anxiety, or if the test is available to you and how many times you have to take the test. So test scores have never been the #1 factor, but many people feel that it is. And I'm glad to know that all of you here don't see that as the #1 factor. Which is great. So according to the National Association of College Admission Counselors, which is called NACAC, GPA is the #1 indicator of college success, and then course rigor and curriculum, and then test scores. And then the ECA, which is the Independent Educational Consultants Association, They believe that it's course rigor and curriculum first, and then GPA, and then test scores. So basically course rigor and curriculum and GPA go hand in hand, because what you take affects your GPA, and your GPA is determined by the courses that you take. The soft factors, on the other hand, are a little bit more aspects that are not easily as objectively measured. So students have much more control over the outcomes of these factors. The time spent choosing your essay, writing it and rewriting the essay, who you ask for your letters of recommendations, how you spend your time outside of the classroom, and how that, that time is utilized to contribute to your extracurricular resume. Interviews, if they're available from an admissions rep or possibly an alumni in the area that would allow you to do that. Right now, those are going on virtually because obviously we are in shelter in place and we don't have the ability to do face-to-face. But sometimes that is done over a cup of coffee, and they'll have an admissions rep in the area or something like that. So if you are that person that doesn't have the hard factors nailed down, and you don't present on paper as competitively as you would like, then those soft factors are the ones that you're able to manipulate and use to your advantage. So if there's an interview available to you, use it, take that time. And lastly, demonstrated interest. I think students know a little bit more about this than parents do, but basically it's how you interact with the institution that you are interested in. And have you proven to be enthusiastic and curious about that school that you're applying to? Have you gone on a college visit? Have you emailed with the admissions rep or your regional admissions rep? Any type of email communications? Have you interacted with their social media? And then the amount of time that you go exploring on their website for resources that they have to you. They track that. They see how many times you've clicked, where you've gone, how much time you've spent on a certain page, all of that business. And they take that and they give it a number, and that's weighed in the admissions whole package. Some schools look at demonstrated interest and other schools don't. So interestingly enough, if you score high on your SAT or your ACT and you have a high score, and your score in your profile is higher than what their historic academic profile of a student would be at that school, it's actually more important for you to show that demonstrated interest, because they're fearful, the school is fearful that you are their likely or safety school. So they want to make sure that they're going to yield you and that you're going to enroll and deposit at that school. So if you are, your academic profile is higher than what historic students are showing, then your demonstrated interest needs to be a little bit more for them. All right, so I'm going to keep going here, and I'm going to talk about test optional and test flexible. Those words are interchangeable. Some schools use the word test optional, some schools use the word test flexible. And basically what that means is that it's going to be a holistic review. They're not just looking at the numbers. They're not just looking at those hard factors. So CSU is much like that. Hard factors, it's a GPA and a test score, and you're basically XY axis. You land on a spot, and if you make it, then you're in. If you don't, then you're not. And depending on how many people are applying and what those other applicants look like. It's brutal. CSU is a brutal application. They're not looking at anything but a number. And we all know that human beings are not numbers. So UCs used to be that way. They have incorporated what we call personal insight questions now, and that is no longer the case. They're a little bit more holistic, but not as holistic as schools that use the Common App or the Coalition App or any of those other application systems where they're looking at a personal statement and letters of recommendation, extracurriculars, all of those various things. So test optional does not mean test blind. Let's understand that, okay? And right now, as things are coming out, so many students that I'm working with, my juniors, are so happy that it has become test optional. Oh, that's great, I don't have to take my SAT or ACT. That's not what that means. So let's be careful about what is being said to us and what that actually means for our admissions process, especially the juniors. Sophomores, this will affect you also, depending on whether or not the school will be test optional for more than 1 year. They're looking at, once again, those hard and soft factors, and they're given equal weight, and they're focused on your academic performance and the student goals. Like, what is it that is going to, what is it that you've done that is going to allow you to be successful, rather than just looking at one aspect, which is the test score. So there are some exceptions to this, and those are direct admit programs, merit aid, and sometimes in order for it to be test optional at what we call traditional test optional schools, not the ones that have decided to become test optional because of COVID-19, sometimes they require a minimum GPA. So I have a link there that's called Fair Test. It is a website that gives you a list of over 1,000 schools that are test optional, including the ones that have decided to go test optional for this admission cycle, meaning the current juniors for 21-22. So basically that means that you can submit your test score if you want to. That's what that means. Test optional means that if you have a test score and it's an accurate representation of your academic abilities, then you should submit it, because it is going to give them another aspect to weigh. It doesn't mean don't worry about test scores. So that's why I'm saying be careful about what all of this, what's out in the media right now that's coming around saying schools are test optional. They are going to look at your application without the consideration of a test score. That's what they're saying. They will, and you will be considered for admission. You may not be considered for merit aid. You may not be considered for other scholarships. You may not be considered for direct admit that way. Those types of programs possibly may need a test score in order for you to apply. Also, you want to be the most competitive applicant when you submit your application. So if that test score, once again, is an accurate reflection of your academic ability, then definitely submit it and use it as another aspect. I see I got lots of questions in my Q&A box right now, but I'm not going to stop myself, and I'm going to promise I'm going to get to all of them at the end, okay? Whereas test blind means that standardized test score is not considered at all in the admissions process, okay? All right, so I hope that answers the question about test optional and test blind, and if it doesn't and there are questions, I promise I will get to them, okay? But I'm going to keep moving here. So what are some of the advantages and disadvantages that have occurred due to this whole COVID-19? And you can see that some of the things that I have in the advantages are also occurring down in the disadvantages. So I will tell you what it looks like from both sides. So, but first things first, juniors, I know that and I don't want to diminish the stress that this COVID-19 has put on all of us, not only you, but your parents and our state and our nation. You know, this has never happened in any of our lifetimes before. None of us alive have experienced anything like this before. And so everybody is dealing with this as best they can. So I understand that there has been a lot of transition. There's been a lot of anxiety, all of these various things that are occurring. So I'm not diminishing any of that at all, but I want you, and this is the way college admission should be approached anyway, and so I feel like this is an advantage right now, is that enjoy this little bit of liberty that you have, and look at it as this technically is kind of the way college is, right? High school is really structured. You go from period 1 to period 2, you know, throughout the day until you get to 6th period, or you're on a block schedule and you're on, you know, a blue day or a gold day or a red day, or, you know, A schedule or B schedule or whatever that is. And it's very structured. College is not like that. So right now, what you're experiencing with the free time that you have possibly, or the way that your classes are structured, or the way that you're doing your homework, or the way that you're submitting your assignments, there's a little bit more freedom in it. So take this opportunity to improve those skills that you're going to need in college: your time management, your organization, your self-discipline, and be guided by your passion rather than I've got to learn because I have to get a grade. Learn because you want to learn, rather than because I have to learn. So I see this as a little bit of an advantage. It's hopefully taking the mindset and having you look at education in another way. This is just a little taste of what college is going to be like without the stress of the COVID-19. And how are you doing? How are you doing with being able to manage your time and your organization and all of that? So basically, everything you do is because you want to do it rather than because you have to do it. And then I'll talk about the testing guidelines right in a minute, but I'm going to look at this holistic review first of basically your teachers. Ask your teachers that are able to speak to your strengths for your letters of recommendation, and that can speak to your work ethic during this time of change. So keep that in the back of your head, who you're going to ask, and these teachers that saw you through this time of change and transition and stress and anxiety, are they able to speak to the various things that you've done? Leadership is going to have a new meaning. Nobody's out on a field or a court or anything like that. Usually that meant the captain of something or the president of something. Those aren't things that you can demonstrate currently right now. You're not the captain of a team or your spring sport or any of those things right now. Now you're taking care of possibly an elderly grandparent or a younger sibling, or you're maintaining a part-time job, or you're donating your time. Or maybe you're the one in charge of family meals every night. So that's another way to demonstrate your leadership. So those are all things part of that holistic review with regards to your letters of recommendation, your extracurriculars, your essays, those soft factors that you're going to be able to put in with what has happened and how you basically took the bulls by the horn and made it work for you in a positive way. So explore the topics that demonstrate, what do I have here? Explore topics that demonstrate who you are when you are looking at being in your college community. When you're looking at writing those essays, how are you going to when you're picking that topic, when you're picking that topic from one of the various prompts that are given to you, how are you going to show them that you're going to be a positive contribution to their community? Okay. And then with regards to deferred enrollment from the current class, so the current seniors most of them have decided on where they're going. And things may change over the summer. We call that summer melt, and I'll be talking about yield and melt in a minute. And those changes can be for various reasons, for financial reasons, for possibly now you don't want to be far away from home, whether or not you're going to have a school to start at. They don't even know if classes are going to be in effect or if they're going to be remote, all of those things. So some students are going to be asking for deferred enrollment from this year, and some will be granted that. They'll keep their deposit and they'll be able to go ahead and enroll for the following year. That can be an advantage to you, that if there aren't enough deferred enrollment spots, then they can only give them to so many people. There is a cap on what they can do. Then that puts you in a situation for next year, if they don't get their yield, meaning they don't have as many students as they thought they were going to yield, and they're going to under enroll, the families and students may be in the driver's seat next year with regards to merit aid. So that could be an advantage for you in the future. And then with regards to the current AP exams, so hopefully your AP teachers have explained to you, and you know that the AP exams will no longer be done at school. They're going to be remote, and instead of a 3-hour exam, they're going to be 45 minutes, and they're going to be digitally, and they're going to be done at home. I used to be an AP teacher, and this is definitely to your benefit. If you have been following along and you've been getting your content, this just all of the information has been shrunk down. You only have 1 or 2 questions that you're going to need to answer. And there's going to be no cap on the amount of 3, 4s, or 5s that they will be given. This has always been the case. Basically, that means they're not going to curve. They're not going to force the curve to have a bell curve with regards to 1s and 5s. So that is absolutely an advantage. So disadvantage with regards to deferment enrollment from the current class, it could be more competitive next year, meaning that not all of the seniors, but many of the seniors who deferred enrollment and didn't get it are now going to have to apply again next year and will be applying with you. Now, the number of spots available at those schools is not going to increase. So it could make it more competitive, and that's something to take, as a disadvantage, and take that into consideration as to where you're applying. And then with regards to the testing guidelines, you're not going to have any more time to take exams. There are no more that are offered this year thus far, although ACT still has their June and July on the plate. ACT and SAT they're committed to giving a remote exam in the fall. I personally think, and the talk amongst all the independent counselors and the admissions people, is that College Board is waiting to see how the AP exam goes with regards to whether or not they're going to launch the digital exam for the SAT in the fall, to see if they can control, unfortunately, the amount of cheating that will be going on, and if they're going to be able to harness that. And then if there's going to be validity to the exam. This exam has never been administered that way before. And so the SAT and the ACT hasn't been administered that way either. So there are a lot of colleges that are a little concerned about the validity behind the score, if that is what is going to be used. And that is the reason why some of the schools, or not some, but many of the schools have decided to become test optional for this following year and not use that hard factor as an aspect for evaluation. Interestingly enough, this just happened, today is Thursday, this happened on Tuesday. This was the first school to do it, and they're a selective school, and usually when one selective school does it, many follow. So Claremont McKenna colleges announced that they were going to be test optional, which was amazing and great. In that same sentence, when they announced that they were going to be test optional, they also announced that the online administration of the SAT or ACT will not be accepted. Meaning that even though they are test optional, if you choose to take the test for whatever reason in the fall, because you haven't taken it and that's still something that you want to do because some of the schools you're applying to, that particular school is not going to accept that online administration. And like I said, once one selective school does something, many follow. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out in the next month or so. So basically, those schools that have become test optional due to the COVID-19 situation, whether it be for 1 year, 2 years, or 3 years, some are saying 1 admission cycle, some are saying 2, some are saying 3, that's just not clear yet. They have to come up with some type of guideline on what that really means, and they haven't completely established that because that's not how they run their schools. An example of this would be the UCs. The UCs decided to become test optional. And I put that in quotations because that's not actually the wording that they're using. They're using the standardized testing requirements have been suspended for 1 year. And if you read closer into what they're posting on there, they're saying that you can apply without your test score, but you will be a much more competitive candidate if you do. So there's a lot of confusion behind this test optional test scores and whatnot. So doing your research and understanding what the school really means by that is really, really important. So basically, I would go back to that fair test link that I was telling you about, and I would look at schools that are truly test optional, that have made these decisions way prior before COVID-19. And they don't look at those standardized test scores for admission, but they do look at it for merit aid maybe, or for a direct admit program, or for certain majors. And that's always been the case. So I'll just give you a couple examples, but George Washington University in DC has been test optional since 2015, and about 30% of their applicants opt to not submit. So that's a good chunk that decide that that's not what they're going to do, and it's just a normal way of them reviewing applications. Another is Wesleyan University. has been also another exclusive liberal arts school since 2015. And they are somewhere between 25 and 35% of their applicants opt to not submit. And then my last example is Wake Forest University. They have been test optional since 2009, and 40 to 45% of their applicants choose to apply without submitting. So once again, if you have already taken an SAT or an ACT and you have a score, that's wonderful. If it's a good score, even better. If it's a true indicator of your academic ability, then definitely submit it, because it's going to be one more aspect that will allow the admissions people on the other end to evaluate you with. It's not going to be the end-all say-so in their decision-making, but it's going to put the whole picture together. Your grades are then reflective of that test score. Or maybe they're not. Maybe they can see that you are taking a very strong course load and you have great grades, but you're not the best test taker. And those are things that you can speak to in one of those holistic applications. So looking at schools that allow you to have a holistic review is really important. Okay, I'm gonna keep going here. So the changes and how long are they gonna last? I wish I had a crystal ball and I can answer all these questions for you, but I'm gonna do the best that I can. Understand that the college admissions people are working just as hard as you are right now to come up with some semblance of normal and guidance to figure out what this new reality is, right? So this hit everybody the same way at the same time, and everybody is having to be flexible and figure it out. So it's going to continue to change. It's going to continue to shift. Some schools are saying they're going to open in the fall. Other schools are not. Some schools are saying they're going to have housing, but not as much, because now it can only be one person per room rather than having roommates. So again, everything's going to be changing, and this is going to continue to affect you when you are applying the following year. So it's going to be fluid and it's going to be flexible. One thing we do know that the evaluation of transcripts are going to be at least for 3 years, because everyone across the country is going to have a spring semester with an altered grading policy or teaching curriculum that occurred. Most schools have shut down, if not just for the time being or for the remainder of the year. So evaluation of transcripts are not only going to be for your admission season, but for sophomores and freshmen also. That spring semester is going to be missing with its accuracy. Now, what does the fall look like with regards to whether or not your school is going to go back? Are you going to be in session at, face-to-face, like in a normal, situation, or are you still going to be in remote learning? We don't know that yet. And that possibly may be another way transcripts are going to have to be evaluated. With regards to the testing guidelines, they're going to vary from institution to institution. Some schools are saying, you know what, we still require the SAT or ACT. And so SAT and ACT are going to have to figure out how they're going to administer those exams. If that doesn't happen and SAT and ACT can administer those exams, then those schools are going to have to adjust their policies. There's no way that they're going to be able to stick to that guideline if that test is not available to them. And that's going to change again from institution to institution. Some are saying we're going to do it for a year. Some are saying we're going to do it for 2. Some were 3. Some said, you know what, we're done. Or University of Oregon decided that we're done. We're not going to deal with this anymore. We're going test optional permanently. So with regards to SAT and ACT, SAT has canceled all in-person administrations. They have added a September test date. So that means in the fall, there will be an exam given each month: August, September, October, November, and December. They have an available day. And ACT, this is interesting, they still have not canceled their June or July exams, except I'm not exactly sure where they're going to administer those exams. They're depending on school sites to do it, and if the schools are closed, then there's nowhere for these students to go take these exams. So that, again, is just, we're waiting to see how that's going to play out and whether or not they're going to stick to their guns on that. Both the SAT and ACT are considering giving that administration of a remote in-home testing in the fall, but you need to be careful about whether or not those are going to be exams that universities will take. Like I said, Claremont McKenna colleges have already decided that that's something they won't do, and that may start to unravel and other schools may follow suit. Lastly, with regards to AP exams, they're going to be administered remotely at home, as I said, for 45 minutes. One thing I would say is to make sure that you have your time right. This was something that just happened with a junior of mine just recently, and we were going over his schedule and everything that he was going to do and his AP exams. And he was like, yeah, I have my AP exam at 4 o'clock on so-and-so day. Like, 4 o'clock? That sounds late. I can't believe they're administering. And so I went and I did a double check. Well, it was 4 o'clock Eastern time, which is 1 o'clock California time, Pacific Standard Time. So had he waited till 4 o'clock, he would have missed his exam. So make sure you're looking at that. All the times that are listed are in Eastern time. So make sure that you know exactly when your exam is, what day, when it's being administered, and what time, okay? All right, Common App for next year. This is not confirmed yet, but they are discussing and most likely will be adding a section that will apply to COVID-19 circumstances to be addressed. So for students and counselors. So whether that be you explaining why you have a pass, no credit, or whether you kept your grades, what made you choose to go one way or the other. If there were any issues with your remote learning due to internet or accessibility issues. If you were directly affected by COVID-19 by a family member or a friend or something like that. And then also for counselors to verify what the school decisions were made, that were made. So, you know, some schools have decided that their grading policy is going to be pass no credit, and students don't have the option to say yes or no to that. So basically they're developing this section because, quite frankly, all the admissions counselors do not want to read a personal statement about COVID-19. So they're going to give this small little section so you can address those things, and then you can use your personal statement and your supplementals to continue to focus on the growth that you made during this time and talk about other topics that are outside of the COVID-19. And that would be my strong recommendation, is that you don't make your personal statement or essay based on that. And again, this is not to diminish the fact that this has been a trying time, but you want to talk about the growth that occurred this time rather than just the difficulties that occurred during this time. All right, so many people are rethinking their whole strategy. So I'm going to give you one piece of advice. Do not make knee-jerk decisions based on this. Still work on the plan that you had prior to COVID-19. I know it doesn't seem like there's an end in sight, but I promise you that at some point in time, we will know life as it was, and things will be back to somewhat normal. Or it may not be the normal that we knew before, but we will have some normalcy. So don't start just saying, oh, I'm not going to go to college, or I'm not going to do this, or I'm not going to take the SAT, or I'm not going to do this, take this AP class, or because I'm just not going to go to this school anymore. Stay on track. Finish strong. That would be my 100%. Finish the semester strong. Second semester junior year is that part of your transcript that is looked at heavily. So don't just let it go at this point in time. As difficult as it may be with everything that is going on, focus and finish strong. Stay focused on learning, okay? College is about learning. So stay focused on learning now. You're gonna have to go do this when you're away at college. Set a foundation for success. Right now, you're probably sitting in your pajamas, and you probably don't brush your hair, really care about the way you look, or any of that business. And you're turning in your homework remotely, and there isn't a lot of interaction. Well, eventually, school is going to be back in place. So what's your plan on how you're going to get back into that traditional learning? It's going to, just as it took you time to adjust and transition to this, it's going to take time to adjust and transition back to what normal looks like. So set that foundation for success. Have some self-reflection. Have you taken charge during this time of your education, and did you challenge yourself intellectually? Did you look at some research that you could do on your own? Did you look at some ways that you can get involved with possibly some remote research or internship or something like that? So remember, your resume is not going to be able to be padded anymore because there are a lot of things this summer that you're not going to be able to do, right? You're not going to have your summer job. You're not going to have that very possibly camp counselor position you had or whatever those things are. So you're not going to be able to pad that resume anymore. So you're going to have to look at new ways to making that happen. And how are you going to make yourself distinguish yourself from others? Discretionary time. I say that because I have more time on my hands right now. I don't know if that's totally true for everyone on the student side. I understand that you have AP exams and finals in school and all of that stuff, but I'm watching my own children who are in college and they have much more time on their hands. So I call that discretionary time. So what did you do with it? How did you stay on track to stay successful? Ultimately, you're going to need to be able to be successful on a campus. So what are some skills that you can work on now to improve that? And then can you use that to demonstrate how you did that with your discretionary time? Possibly in one of those supplemental essays or something like that for your application. It's basically, this is gonna open up opportunities for everyone, and everyone's gonna be on a more even playing field, because we're not gonna have, as those test scores, everybody's not gonna have them. It's not gonna be one less objective piece to look at. So how are you improving yourself? I'm just gonna give you a quick example. All right, so doctors and nurses right now are having to wear masks that, the really tight ones, and then put another one, what are those, the N95 masks, and the back of their ears are getting raw from wearing that little rubber thing, or the elastic band. They're raw. So I was reading an article about a young girl who had no sewing ability, had never sewn or before or anything like that, and she basically made headbands and sewed 2 buttons on either side so that those elastic pieces could be hooked onto the button rather than behind the ear, to help with the abrasion and the constant rubbing of the elastic piece behind the ear. That was great. I don't know if she's selling them or she's giving them away or whatever it is, but it's just thinking outside of the box. So I say to all of you, what about all the poor men that have this? They're not wearing headbands. We've got doctors, nurses, respiratory therapists, all of those people in the medical field. So I'm going to put it out there for you juniors. What can we do to help for them? Women get to wear the headbands. What do males get to do? All right. So last thing on early action and early decision. So will these dates be changed in the application process? That's yet to be seen. And it's most likely going to depend on the SAT and the ACT exams in the fall and how they're going to. So if there are no exams, those early action dates may get pushed out, because if they are not ready to make the decision that they're going to go test optional, they're going to have to figure out how to take those early action applications without that test score. So that could be something that is going to change with regards to when those are. And then will the schools be accepting those exams? If they do say, yes, we're going to go ahead and we still want to see those exams, once again, are they going to accept that remote testing administration and its validity of that exam? So some schools are offering or making the decision to do pass, no credit, and it may affect the early action applications, because now you're not going to have grades for your second semester junior year. So they may push out that early action deadline so that they're going to be able to see your 7th semester, which is your first year of senior year grades. And so early action deadline may have to be pushed out. So again, none of these changes have been made, but these are all possibilities. And so thinking about those things as you approach the process. Okay? So I know some of you are concerned about visits. And so juniors, know this, that the vast majority of students go on college visits in the spring of their senior year. Okay? So it's usually after you've been accepted. Going on a college visit is expensive. And most of the visitation programs are in the spring anyway, and they usually happen all in the same weekend. So the fact that we're not having visits right now is actually to your advantage. There are so many virtual visits that are available, whether they be directly from the school and the admissions representatives. And quite frankly, I think it's better than going on a tour with 50 people. You're actually able to speak to the admissions representative one-on-one. And it's great. I'm going to give you a link to StriveScan. I don't know if any of you know about this already or not, but there are over 300 schools that are online this week from the 27th, actually earlier this week until the 8th of May, across the country and internationally, that are being grouped together in sessions from 9 a.m. in the morning till 7 p.m. And you can go on and register similar to this, and you can go on and speak to admissions representatives. Okay, and then the individual institution websites are having them, and the regional admissions reps also. So one thing about social media, really quick, sometimes not all students use social media in the best way. So I'm going to give you a positive way to use it. And usually when you're looking at schools, sometimes you look at their admissions site on their Instagram, their Snapchat, their Twitter, all of those things. My suggestion to you is to go on to a club and organization that you're interested in and go on to their Snapchat or their Twitter or their Instagram. And that'll give you a better vibe of the school. That is a great way to see if that school is a good fit for you and look at it from that perspective. Another way is to read the student newspaper. People who are writing the paper are usually reflective of the student body, and that'll give you a good idea of the culture of that school. Okay, so I'm going to actually launch one other poll right now about grades, and I am going to see what you guys think here. So, with the options to have pass or no credit, pass fail basically, or a letter grade, which is the better option? Look at this. I guess I don't have to speak to my next slide, which will be wonderful. We're at about 86%, almost there. If we can get a couple more, so I can get 100%. I love to get 100%. All right, I'm gonna give it a few more seconds. And I'm gonna go ahead and end the poll. And I'm going to share the results with you. And you are all absolutely right. If you have the choice, get your letter grade. It affects your GPA, and that again is one more hard factor that is able to be evaluated. So here is the slide on grades. I'm going to go through this very quickly for those of you who may not know this. So Templeton High School, Atascadero High School, Paso Robles High School, and Mission College Prep. These are the policies that are in effect as of yesterday. So students at Templeton, you will have the option to receive a pass or no credit in place of receiving a letter grade, and no grade received will be lower than the grade the student had as of March 16th, 2020, which was the last day of classes. Letter grades will be the default grade unless you otherwise request that by the student or a parent. And a letter grade of a D will receive a pass as the default grade. Pass no credit will not be calculated into your GPA, and the deadline to make that decision is May 25th to opt in or opt out. Atascadero High School, letter grades will be given. That has not changed, but the grade can only be improved. So basically the grade that you had at the last progress report will be the grade that you receive, or it could be higher depending on the student's participation and performance in the course. Paso Robles High School is giving a letter grade with the option to get a pass or no credit. A, B's, and C marks will calculate into your GPA, and as normal, a pass and a no credit will not calculate into the GPA, holding the GPA unaffected. Students that receive an A, B, or C at the semester will have the opportunity to change that grade to a pass or to a pass mark. And the pass mark will not affect the student's overall GPA. The student will receive credit for the successful completion of the course, and students will need to complete a form with your counselor at the end of the semester, and it needs to be reviewed by them, and you'll get more information about that being provided to you. Mission College Prep, letter grades, and there is no change to the grading policy. So basically, if you have a strong second semester junior year and you don't opt for the pass no credit option, you will have a GPA to work with and you can stay on the original plan and track that you had. It puts you in a stronger position. So if you have the ability to opt out, only do it if you absolutely have to. Otherwise, stick with your letter grade. All right, so yield and melt. I'm going to explain what this means and I'll tell you why it's important. Yield is the percent of students who choose to enroll in a particular college or university after having been offered admission. Melt, there's two different kinds of melt, and the one that I'm more concerned with, well, I'm both, but the one that I'm going to focus on is application melt. So there's application melt, and basically that's the phenomenon that students that are confused by either paperwork or applications, and right now I think the most confusing thing is test optional, not test optional tests, or test standardized test scores or no test scores, and the lack of parental guidance. Not that parents don't know, are not wanting to guide, but don't know how to guide. And then the last is that, you know, teenagers just procrastinate. So those are the reasons why you would have application melt. Summer melt, on the other hand, is something different. That's the phenomenon of students who have applied to a school, they've been accepted at a school, they've made a deposit to enroll, and then end up not attending that college or any other college. And that's more towards the current seniors, which may increase the deferments. So all of this, why is this all important? This is all important because all of this yield and melt that is happening now, the yield that the colleges are getting from the seniors, and the summer melt that's going to occur from these seniors, and then the application melt that you current juniors possibly may have, is all going to affect next year's yield. And that is going to affect the way these institutions are going to put out their offers. So once again, staying on track is the most important thing. So if we can stay on track and not shift all of this around, it won't shift on the other end. So that's why I talk about yield and melt. And this is basically what it looks like. So inquiries and interests at the top with regards to I'm interested, and then you have really strong applicants, and that's depending on how selective the school is. And depending on how selective the school is, the application can be more demanding, and that's where you get that application melt. Those are for my juniors that I'm speaking to right now. And then then you get admitted, then you deposit, and then you enroll. That area right there of this chart is where yield occurs. And then you have your second melt, which is your summer melt, and that will then decrease the number of students who enroll. So this whole diagram that I'm giving you here affects the current juniors based on the decisions that sometimes the current seniors are making. Because if they under enroll this year, they're going to have to make up for that financially next year. So something to keep in mind, okay? All right, so how do you make choices with all of this? Nothing's changed. Look at your learning and social style. Look at the institutional size that you want. Look at the location of where you want to go to school. Look at the majors that you're thinking of doing. These are all things that you should be thinking about anyway, and it shouldn't change on how you make a choice. Find assessments that work for you to tell you what your learning and social styles are. Think about the type of institution that you want to attend, large, small, medium size. Where is this school? What's the ease of travel to and from this school? What's the cost of travel to and from this school? What's the availability of public transportation at this school? What are the various things in the environment off campus and various internships that are available to you at this school? And then majors. Look at whether or not there are direct admit programs. If there is a direct admit program and you're committed to knowing what you want to do it. It's one less application and one less standardized graduate test that you're going to have to take in the future. If you don't know what you want to do and you want to be undecided and undeclared, definitely do it. That is not a problem. Don't feel pressured to make a decision when you're 17 years old about the rest of your life. 40% of, somewhere between 30 to 40% of students enter into college as undeclared, and 70% of those students change their mind at least once over the 4 years. So nobody's telling you to make a decision, but if you know what you want to do and you're determined and committed, definitely make that happen and move forward in that direction. All right, and then how do you do that? Make your lists. I know this isn't the first time you've heard this, but I have a 3-3-3 rule. I don't know if you've heard that before, but make a list: reaches, targets, likelies. Some people like to call the likelies safeties. Either one of them is fine. Terminology that you want to use. I put the HF and the SF next to each one of those. HF meaning hard factors, SF meaning soft factors. So definitely, build a balanced list. Don't have a bunch of reaches and nothing over here on your likely areas, so that you don't have anywhere to go if none of those reaches come through. I see this a lot with UCs. Lots of students want to apply to all the UCs and then they don't get into any of the UCs. You're a California student, and they're working at it. It's getting better. I'm not going to say it's not. It's getting better. This year it may change for you guys, because there may not be as many out-of-state and international students applying, but that has not been the case historically. Make sure the list that you have, that your likelies, you're just as happy to go to that likely school as you are to your reach school. You need to be excited across the board. All right, parents, you're asking me, what do I do? What do I do? He's driving me crazy. She's driving me crazy. Yes, that's what they do. They drive us crazy, but they're wonderful at doing that. I would say be honest with your student. You need to be honest about a lot of things right now, and these are hard conversations to have. Be honest about your finances. Be honest about travel and distance from home. Be honest about your expectations, and have a plan and discuss what that plan is. Sit down and agree upon it. So that way they are not confused about what they are searching for. So parents, I'm going to say you need to sit down and have these really direct and honest conversations with your students right now, and your children, and tell them, this is what we can afford. This is what we can't afford. This is how far I'm willing to have you from home. No, you can go, not a problem. These are our expectations. If you go, this is what we expect from you. And then move forward on that. Focus on what can be controlled right now. Have them focus on the parts of the application that they can control. Their essays. The Common App prompts haven't changed. I'm not saying work on them right now. That's stressful. Finish school, finish the semester, take your AP exams, take your finals. Focus on this year and finish strong. Remember, grades are more important than anything, right? Your grades, your GPA, and your curriculum. So focus on that. And then start looking at those prompts. How can I work on them? I've got all summer to do it. Like I said, your summer plans may not be what they were before. So now here's an opportunity to do something else with that. Letters of recs. Start thinking about who is going to write that for you. Okay? Demonstrated interest. Can you do that? Can you email? Can you start doing some of those things that I talked about earlier? And then virtual visits. They're all over the place. Take advantage right now while you're at home. Senior course selection. It's my next slide, 5-4 rule. It's really quick. Important. I think your senior year course selection is going to be more important than historically it has been. So be mindful of being that senior that was going to take it easy. There's the possibility that the grades that you have second semester are going to be evaluated against those with pass and no credit. And so they're going to, I'm not saying that they're not going to take your grades into consideration, but there is going to be a shift on the way that is evaluated. So first semester senior year is going to have just as much impact as second semester junior year. So be mindful of those courses that you've chosen to take, and if there's a way for that to change, or maybe possibly not change, or what that's going to look like next year. Follow what's happening in the fall with regards to what's going on at these schools. Are they opening up? Are they remote learning? All of those things, and have that drive you with regards to the admission type that you're thinking of doing, whether it be early action, regular decision, early decision, rolling admissions, all of those things. Parents, I would ask you to do some research. Research the programs of where your students are thinking of applying. And look at program strength, not national rankings, not the name of the school, not any of those things, but strength of a program that your student is possibly thinking of applying to. If they're applying undeclared but have an idea of what they think they want to do, then look at that. Will this school that you are thinking of applying to, is it going to be around in 4 years from now? You want to look at their financial stability. So the way you can do that is looking at their acceptance rate and their yield. If it's high for both of those things, it indicates demand. The school isn't going anywhere. Look at their endowments. Private schools especially, obviously. You want to look at endowments that are in the hundreds of millions of dollars. You've got endowments of hundreds of millions of dollars, it indicates a more financially stable school. Private nonprofits have to file something called a 990 form. Look that up. It tells you where all their money is going and how it's being spent. And it tells you the financial stability of the school. Public universities don't have that, but their foundations do. And I will give you a link on how to look at that, those 990 forms, and how to do that type of research. And then help your students with their volunteer and extracurriculars this summer. You know, how will they keep up their interests while they're stuck inside? So my niece, she's a soccer player, and she's competitive. She's being recruited by, you know, this school and that school and blah, blah, blah. She's a junior. And she is unable to go to soccer practice. So they have cleared out their dining room. She has put the cones all over the place. She has set up her computer, and she is doing a virtual training session with her little sister's team so that they could practice. And everybody's practicing together on a Zoom meeting. So adapt your interests, show some creativity, figure out how you're going to make that happen. Okay? All right, so here's how you keep your academic resume competitive. 5-4 rule. You have 5 core academic subjects: English, math, science, social science, and world language. Take them for all 4 years and you don't have anything to worry about. That's all there is to it. 5-4 plan. 5 core academic subjects, take them for all 4 years. A lot of California students get stuck on A through G requirements. Understand A through G is for UC, and that is not a national or universal guideline. For example, states like Oregon, Washington, Colorado, and Texas are just a few. They have a 3-year requirement for science and social science. UC's, it's only 2. So if you meet the minimum requirement for A through G for a UC, doesn't mean that you meet the minimum requirement that is available to you at all the various out-of-states and private schools. All right, admission types and deadlines. Early decision, early action, regular decision, rolling admissions. Once again, what I would have you focus on here is basically watching to see how these things are going to change and whether or not that is going to be beneficial for you to apply early action or not. And those, you know, keeping an eye on what those dates look like. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to wrap this up. I'm going to give you one last thing here with regards to the service and product that I am going to be launching next month in May, and how it works. So basically, what I do is I work with students one-on-one, and I have you for either your entire junior year or the end of your sophomore year until your senior year. And sometimes parents and families, that's not financially feasible for them to hire someone like me to do that. And I, you know, have 2 boys of my own. I'm a mom. I understand all of that stuff. And so I worked really hard to figure out how I can make this happen to some degree. It's not going to be that one-on-one, you know, that I'm constantly like that young man that I'm working with now who, you know, came back with his incorrect AP exam, you know, I'm constantly working with students and doing that. But this is that happy, or what I hope to believe to be a happy medium. So I'm going to be from May of this year till May of next year. It's going to be a 12 session once a month. And it is going to be a live webinar. And you're going to learn, listen, ask questions. Each month is going to be focused on one aspect of your application process. And then we're going to talk about that during the live webinar. It'll be on, you know, just like this, except I'll be able to see you. Right now, I can't see you guys because we're not in a meeting, we're in a webinar, but we'll be in where we can see each other, we can talk to each other, we can ask questions. You'll be in with a cohort of your students who are also juniors. And then at the end of that meeting, I'm going to give you a monthly action step or homework assignment. And then you're going to have free resources and that are guiding you on how to do that. And then we're going to meet the following month. And then we're going to walk through your application process just like that. I'm offering it in two different ways. I'm doing it with a Jumpstart program and an all-in program. And the difference between the two are basically some of the things that you're going to be able to get in the Jumpstart program. So in the all-in program. So both of them, you're going to have the live webinar and you're going to have a private Facebook group. The difference is one Facebook group is going to be with like-minded students, and you guys are going to support each other, like being in a AP class or an honors course where you guys work together collaboratively. In the all-in, you're going to be in that base group group with me, and it will have more interaction with me rather than just the 1 hour webinar. And then the all-in will also get a college planning tool, a college affordability tool, which is an EFC calculator to calculate based on your family's income and financial situation, but particular to each school, all in one place. All the colleges have EFCs on them. This is just a proprietary tool that I have. And then doing custom college searches, having a college match test with regards to interest learning styles, and then having organization tools and checklist tools, and then having a college fit survey. And that's my website for this program that I am launching. And then here are some of the things that I was talking to you about before. So up top is my website. I have a resources page. I have a blog page. StriveScan is the virtual college visits that are going on as of Monday of this week until May 8th, hundreds of colleges across the country. NACAC is the National Association of College Admissions Counselors, and that is being updated daily on the schools that are going test optional and for how long, and what is happening with the whole college admissions landscape. That is the link for the 990 forms, parents, so that you can look at the financial stability of schools. And then financial aid appeals. This was really for my seniors. If there's anyone who is having to appeal their financial aid, or if you know a senior who possibly cannot go to the college that they were thinking, this is a site that is helping them fill out and reapply for their financial aid for this coming year. And it's called Form Swift. Okay, and that's it. So I am now going to go to my questions. Give me 1 second here. I think I have a long list. All right, I'm going to go down. How do you think COVID-19 will be affecting the Ivy League admissions with the SAT and ACT? Well, I hope that I answered that. Right now, Harvard has said that they've gone test optional. And once, like I said, once one school does it, within a cohort of schools, so Ivy Leagues and then selective and then less selective and down the road or down the ladder, then that's what's going to, they're going to make changes based on that. Once again, if there are no SATs or ACTs to take, the schools are going to have to figure out how they're going to change what they're doing. There's a great article, I will post it in one of my blogs that just came out today. Is COVID-19 going to be the death of the ACT and SAT? And it possibly may be, but I don't know. For GPAs, do they focus more on weighted or unweighted GPA? Amy, understand that all colleges are going to take your GPA and they're going to deconstruct it on a 4.0 scale. So when you're looking at schools and you're looking at your comparison to an average student admitted profile, look at your unweighted GPA, not your weighted. Okay. If I have a 4.0 GPA, but on an average, SAT score around 1100, should I still submit my SAT? This is an anonymous person. I would say no. If your SAT score is mediocre and it is not reflective of the type of student you are, then apply test optional. Let them look at the parts of your application that are strong. What are the SAT dates again? If you go onto my website under resources, there's an SATs and ACT tab, which will give you all the dates. Do colleges look at private high schools or college prep high schools as more difficult coursework? In other words, does a straight A student from NCP versus public high school have an advantage? Chris, that's a good question. And the straightforward answer is no. They're looking at your information based on the school profile. You are not being compared to students at other schools. You're being compared based on the school profile. So when you submit your application, your counselor has to send the school profile saying, this is how many AP classes we offer. This is how many honors courses we offer. This is the grading scale that we use. These are the service hour requirements that we have. All of these things that tell them exactly what Mission College Prep looks like. And they look at you based on that information. Just FYI, the ACT at Arroyo Grande High School in June is canceled. Thank you, Cheryl, for sharing that with us. I spoke to someone from school yesterday. They just haven't told ACT yet. Probably next week. Once again, like I said, I don't know why ACT is holding out, but if schools are not in session and they're going to put their teachers and students in harm's way, I just don't see schools coming forward and saying that we are going to administer our June and July tests. But thank you, Cheryl, for giving that to us. How do you know if my ACT score is reflective of my grades? How do I know, if my ACT score is reflective of my grades? You would look at it as, Jennifer, as a percentile. So you definitely want to look at, I'm an 88, an A student, so I'm going to be in that 90 to 100%, somewhere in there, depending on how your school grades and what that looks like for you. I'm a strong A student or just on the bottom A- area. And then you're going to look at your ACT or SAT score, and it's going to put you in a percentile ranking. And you kind of look at those two things to see if they are reflective of one another. I hope that answered the question. If it didn't, you can go on and ask me. You can email me. I'm happy to answer. All right. Did I miss anything? Parent, junior, this was all the beginning with who was here. I think I answered all the questions that were answered. Okay. All right. If I don't wait, I actually have some in the chat section, it looks like. What will they do if already sent your first AT score to the colleges with hopes to show improvement on the next test? Can you ask them not to use them? Yes, you can do that, Jennifer. If you have submitted a score and it is not one that you want to be used, you have not applied yet. But if you use the scoring to be sent off from the ACT when you actually took it, then you can ask that you don't want that score to be considered, and they will take it out. So yes, you still have the ability to do that. You will have to make sure that you speak to someone at each particular school that you sent it to make sure that that is not taken into consideration in your application. Okay. All right, do we have any other questions before I go? Oh, wait a minute, here's some more that popped up. If a large number of class of 2020 defer admissions for 1 year, does that decrease the number of available spots for the class of 2021? I think I answered that in the presentation, but I'm going to say it again. There are only so many deferred spots that are available at each one of the schools. So if current class of 2020 are asking for deferment and those schools give them to them, they have their spot for next year already. You're not worried about the deferred students. You're worried about the students who didn't get the deferment and decided not to go. They are then going to be in the applicant pool with you next year. That is a good question. Is it going to decrease the number of spots that are available to you? I don't believe that that's the way the institutions are going to handle it. They are going to give preference, or they're going to evaluate applications based on the students coming in. Also, the student who decided not to go, what have they been doing for 1 year? Okay, in order to be competitive with you, Tracy, they're going to have to show for 1 year, what have they been doing? I decided not to go to school, and they're going to have some type of reflection of this year. So unless they're doing something, I am recommending for all of my seniors to not defer and to not take a gap year. Learning, even if it is remote, is better than nothing at all. That is all there is to it. So if you defer and take a gap year, what are you going to do with your time? You're going to have to show them that you did something with that time. So Tracy, I don't believe that those spots are going to diminish for your class. I have a question here from Allison. I have a 4.8 GPA. Young lady, what are you doing? That's wonderful. And a 1300 SAT score. Should I submit? That is a tricky one. Allison, I would have to look at the rest of your stats. You know, once again, you are not just a number, sweetheart. You are not 4.8 and 1300. You are so much more than that. You are a human being that has lots to contribute to an institution, whatever that may be. If that's something that you want to reach out to me privately about, so that I can look at some of your extracurriculars and look at some of those other soft factors that are involved. You know, 4.8 GPA, I'm assuming that's coming from honors and AP classes, otherwise you wouldn't have a weighted GPA. I'd like to see what your unweighted GPA is, and you know, what that looks like. You know, without looking at the whole picture, that is a hard one to answer with a yes or no. All right. I don't think I have any more questions. Looks like I answered them all. Thank you, everyone, for coming on tonight and sharing this time with me. I hope that you reach out to me. I hope that I'll have you in my masterclass and that we'll be able to go on this journey together for the next month. I'm sorry, for the next 12 months, starting at the end of next month, the end of May. We'll go from May to May, and I hope that I have a nice cohort of juniors to work with. I will be holding another webinar with regards to approaching and what are the next steps of what you're to work on. It's going to happen after AP exams and after finals towards the end of the month, right before I start my masterclass. And all of you who registered tonight will be getting a recording of this. So if you missed anything, weren't able to write anything down, or if you know any of the questions need to be answered, anything like that, you'll get a recording. You'll also get up a follow-up email with future webinars if you are interested in joining. So I thank you so much for coming on this evening, and hopefully we will talk again soon. Have a wonderful evening.